यश ये अनमोल लाइव. यश.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, now we can start.
We should begin, ma'am.
Yes.
Good morning, everyone. On behalf of Bharati Vidyapeeth, deemed to be University New Law College Environment Cell, we welcome you to this historic webinar on the topic Catching the Rainwater Where It Falls, being conducted as a prelude to the World Water Day. We take this opportunity to welcome our chief guest, Dr. Narendra Sunderlal Chook, senior member of the Pune Jal Biradari, our principal, Dr. Bhagyashree Deshpande, madam, learned faculty members of our college, friends from the student community, and all those joining us through the digital space. Now, there's a famous saying in the Rig Veda, Apavantram Amritamapsu, Apah Sarvasya Bheshajah, Jal Jeevanam, meaning there is nectar in water, there is medicine in water. Water is cure for all diseases because water is life. And rightfully so, because water is essential for all living creatures. Not only do we need water for essential functions of life, but also to produce the modern products of technology. However, the major problem today is the balance between water supply and water demand. To help us better understand this dichotomy and equip ourselves with the proper solutions, we are joined today by a towering figure in the field of water conservation, Dr. Narendra Sunderlal Chook. Born in the year 1959, Dr. Chook can rightfully be called as a polymath of sorts because of his wide and deep knowledge in the field of arts, law, and managerial sciences. An avid reader and someone having keen interest in the field of spirituality, Sir is also a noted environmentalist and philanthropist. Under his able supervision, the Agrani River Basin Rejuvenation Program in Maharashtra's Sangli district was successfully completed, covering an area of 138 square kilometers and spread over 107 villages. Likewise, Sir has also been the founder trustee of the Jal Dindi Pratishthan, an yearly river expedition of 450 kilometers from holy places of Alandi to Pandarpur. Similarly, Sir's epoch-making contribution towards cleaning the Pavna and Mutta River is also inspirational. In addition to this, Sir has equally participated in various national and international conferences dealing with the crucial topic of water conservation. We welcome you, sir, to this webinar. May we kindly request you to address this gathering. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Yash. Thank you, Principal Bhagyashree Deshpande ji, my friends, and all those dear friends who are listening to this on the digital space. I don't feel that I deserve all that accolades that Yash has already mentioned. I am a common man who got interested into the water sector and thereby started learning how severe the water crisis is getting to happen. So I was not really contented with only the problem, because the problem is so immense the world over. And if we just Google water crisis, then we were faced with so many studies. Even our Niti Aayog has published a report in 2018 which states that the water crisis in India is going to get so acute that more than 600 million people would be staying and living under water stressed conditions in India itself. And 75% of the family and households in urban areas are today not getting drinking water, and nearly 80% of the rural households are not getting drinking water which is treated. They are dependent on some kind of a contaminated water only. This is the Niti Aayog's report of 2018. And similarly, 2018 was a very, very bad year for Maharashtra. It was suffering. It was said in the reports that 2018 was the worst drought year for Maharashtra, even worse than 1972 drought, which is actually a kind of landmark in Maharashtra's drought history. That 1972 drought is remembered as a kind of a watershed year for the drought. People, the people who are interested in studying the drought in Maharashtra. Even in that time, they said that the uh, water was not at all available, and because food was not available, that's why that was acute. But the affected districts were only around 17 to 18, maybe 24 districts were affected. But in 2018, more than 33 districts were affected. So by that standards, it was decided, I mean, it was compiled in the reports of 2018 that this was the worst drought year in Maharashtra. So this water crisis, we have been learning, we have been studying, we have been, kind of working over it. So uh, uh, I was more interested in getting kind of solutions. Okay, this issue is there, water crisis is there in the future. Why in the future? Currently also, you must have known that last year and year before last, even Cape Town was declared as a zero water city. Our cricketers who had gone there were getting water in five-star hotel on a ration basis. A minimum water which could be used not as a luxury but only for subsistence. So in India also today it is being feared that more than four major cities would be facing water shortages, and Bangalore tops that particular list. Now these are the scenarios. This is the water crisis that we are facing throughout the world, and India is no exception. In spite of getting huge rainfall and this, water resources being available, still we are finding this water crisis staring at us. And if we do not put up a acts together, then perhaps this water crisis would further aggravate, and it will be very difficult. It will definitely affect our gross domestic product, because industry, agriculture, everything is dependent. Even human life is dependent. Yash was explaining the couplet from our scriptures, and in spite of having these kind of teachings and learnings in our country, we have been somehow not very vigilant about usage of water. We do not have respect for water. We do not recycle, reduce, reuse. These 5 or 6 R's that are there, which can really be a key to solve this water crisis, are not being followed very diligently and by every member of the society. So after reviewing this particular water crisis that is looming large, I was more interested in trying to find out people who are working for the solutions. There are millions and millions of people, and who are working on the solutions, and they are uh, so much intricately involved in solving this issue and trying to avert the water crisis. Now, we met Dr. Rajendra Singh ji, who is our mentor, and who got his Stockholm Water Prize in 2015 for having rejuvenated 7 rivers in a very, very dry area of Rajasthan. So we were really impressed by this kind of a person, because uh, we had heard about, trying to save a water body, trying to save a lake, trying to save a threatened, kind of a large lake. We had heard these kind of stories, but reviving and rejuvenating 7 rivers in a very dry, uh, desert-like conditions of Rajasthan was something which was is as Stockholm International Prize narrates. It's never done by anybody in the world. So we were really curious to know what is it that Dr. Rajendra Singh has done, so that he was able to revive these 7 rivers. And we consequently got very much interested, not only in learning and understanding how the rivers get dry and how they can be rejuvenated, because that was the key to ensuring that the water crisis is we play our role in averting the water crisis. So we started understanding about this particular phenomenon, and the first basic principle we learned is that if you have to rejuvenate any river, then you have to first follow the river basin approach. Every river, a small tributary, also has its own basin. Now I will just narrate a story of Agrani River Basin, of which I am very much closely involved and have been instrumental in ensuring with my entire team that we work in this river basin so that river rejuvenates perennially and forever sustainably. So we have got a lot of success, and a lot of work is yet to be done in these 107 villages. But nevertheless, we have been successful in March of this month. We are in now March, and that a tributary, Mahakali tributary of Agrani River, you can see on the presentation. This is the Agrani River Basin, and this is the area which comprises, as Yash was saying, 138 square kilometers, and it has spread over 107 villages. Now, I just wanted to highlight one important, kind that when we look at the river, or if we have to kind of uh, uh, ensure that the rain falling in this area, okay, the rain falling in this area, this river basin, if it is allowed not to run away from that particular river basin through the river to the sea, then if the water is kind of collected and the water is stored in this river basin, then we can really take care of the water crisis and make the river uh, perennial. So the first principle which actually Dr. Rajendra Singh ji taught us which he learned through his experience, as he says, that catch the rain, catch the rain where it falls. तो हिंदी में वो कहते हैं कि पानी जहां दौड़ता है वहां इसे चलना सिखाना है, जहां रेंगने लगे वहां इसे ठहराना है, जहां ठहर जाए वहीं धरती के पेट में बिठाना है, ताकि नजर न लगे सूरज की। जब कभी सूखा और अकाल आए तो मर्यादित होकर इसी जल से जीवन चलाना है। देखिए, एक ही, दिस इज अ वेरी सिंपल प्रिंसिपल, The principle states that there is a runoff of rainwater from wherever you are staying. So if you are watchful, and if you take steps to ensure that the water doesn't run away from the village, from the locality, from the area that you are living in, from your house, maybe the rooftop where the rain falls, if you catch that particular rain, if you catch that particular water, uh, properly drain it, filter it, and put it into your bore well or the well, then individually also you can ensure that you will not be suffering through water shortage. Now, since individual can make provision for his own water, that individual can look after the needs of his water, he can buy the water. But a community, a community which depends on the groundwater, the community which depends on a lake, the community depends on the well water, the community depends on the river. So the community, if it has to ensure its water security, it will have to collectively, individually, yes, but collectively they will have to ensure what an individual can do. He can collect the rain water that falls on the rooftop and put it in his borewell. But the community has to do a work at the village level, at the city level, at the ward level, because whatever rain falls, the rain normally runs away. That's because in the city we have paved our major part of the city. There is a concrete buildings, and around the buildings we have kind of concrete roads or the paving blocks. So we have not left any space or any ground vacant for the water to percolate. And now the city is totally they take pride in ensuring that no dust is kind of in the air. We have covered the entire ground, and now there is no dust that can blow out into the air. So they take pride in saying that this city is a smart city. But as far as the water is concerned, whenever there is a rainfall, the entire rainfall through our streams, through our rivers, is washed away, and the water does not get percolated into the ground. Consequently, that city faces a lot of water issues and water shortages. This is at the city level. Similarly, at the village level, we see what has happened over a period of time is our due to usage of fertilizers and pesticides, the microorganisms in the soil, which used to kind of perforate that particular soil. In Marathi, it is said that gandur, the earthworms, they move up and down into the ground, creating small perforations. And by creating perforations, they make the entire soil very, very porous, and that porosity helps in recharging or allowing the water to percolate. But what has happened over a period of time is that due to chemical fertilizers, all these microorganisms, all our earthworms are now dead, and the soil is gives nourishment through external means by giving fertilizers. So the soil, which was very, very porous in the villages also, have been now turned into a very hard ground. And consequently, when the rain falls, the soil being not very porous, not being receptive to the groundwater and the rainwater, erodes the topsoil and carries the silt and the water through our streams to the river and ultimately to the sea. So these particular phenomenon, another important development which has caused lot of runoff is the cutting of trees. Because the trees have been cut, the deforestation has happened in a very, very large scale. What has happened is the trees used to absorb the impact of the raindrops, and the leaves would absorb all the impact of the raindrop, and the drop would gently fall on the ground. This uh, gentle falling of the raindrop on the dead leaves which were there below the trees helped in ensuring that there is not kind of a speedy runoff of the water. These leaves on the ground would ensure that there is resistance in flowing, and because the water was stagnated, as in this particular principle it was said, जहां पानी दौड़ता है वहां इसे चलना सिखाना चाहिए. So the raindrop would fall on the ground and would be faced with resistance of the leaves of the kind of a porous soil, and it would get into the soil. And because of the trees, the roots would help the water to percolate into the ground. So all these factors which had helped the rainwater to kind of percolate in our cities, in our rural areas, we as a humans have kind of played and intervened in these particular natural phenomenon of which allowed the water to percolate into the ground. Now, because of these developments, the rainwater, we are finding a lot of water storage, water percolation, groundwater recharge problems. Now, that's why people would ask me, why earlier then it was not required? Because there were trees. The trees would help in, the roots would help in the water to percolate to the ground. These ground aquifers, when full with water, would discharge through the springs. This water would get discharged through the springs into the streams. These streams would now come together to form a river, and the river would start flowing. So this was the natural hydrological cycle. There was evaporation, rainfall recharged the groundwater. The groundwater is so important because it caters to more than 78% of the irrigation needs in Maharashtra are fulfilled by groundwater. So groundwater is so important that after the aquifers, or what we say reservoirs which are there below the ground, when they get full, they result in the springs. These springs then feed the streams. These streams then feed the river. So this kind of a the cycle gets completed, and the humans would use the water that was required by them for their needs. So there was no there was water which was left for the nature. To the rivers would nourish the nature also. Nourish the nature means they would nourish the trees along the path. There was sufficient moisture in the ground, and hence the tree cover was always there. But because we have intervened with this cycle has been disrupted, and consequently we find that after the rains, the ground is now open and without tree cover, so the soil gets eroded. You can imagine that a raindrop, instead of falling on the leaf now is having an impact directly on the soil, and soil it with that impact it takes the soil along with it, and that soil along with the water it flows through our streams. Now these muddy streams, the mud gets settled in the streams, and the water carrying capacity of the streams get totally reduced. Now, on the one hand, we have ensured that the water doesn't percolate into the ground because there are no more trees. The ground has hardened because of the microorganisms being killed by the fertilizers. So the ground is hard, and this hard ground is now prone to erosion. Now this eroded soil flows in the water and gets deposited in our streams and rivers. Consequently, what happens is the width and the depth of the river, because of the settled soil, is reduced, and the water carrying capacity is reduced. On the one hand, we have now ensured that the water doesn't recharge our ground, the water doesn't replenish the groundwater reservoir, our aquifers, and on the other hand, there is not enough space for the water to flow in the streams and the rivers. So consequently, what happens is there is flooding because the water overflows as the space which was available for the water now is completely filled of soil. So the surplus water now causes flood. So we see that once there is rainy season, there is a cloudburst kind of a thing, a heavy rainfall on a day, and we see there is a lot of flood. And when that flood water has gone away, we face drought because there is no water which was there in the ground. So this principle of catch the rain where it falls is so important that unless at a collective level, at an individual level, if we do not ensure that the rainwater that falls has to be properly caught and then properly allowed to percolate in our ground, the groundwater recharge, and wherever it is flowing, we can create impediments. So now I will talk about a few structures that can be built, by the community, by the individuals who can really ensure that the groundwater, which was likely to flow away, now is caught and it is allowed to percolate in the ground. So in this picture itself, you can see that these particular trenches that are dug in the picture, they are known as continuous contour trenches. CCT, continuous contour trenches. In Marathi, that is known as Salag Samtal Char. Salag Samtal Char. Sir, whenever there is kind of a sloping hill, sloping mountain, where there is a likelihood of the entire rainwater that flows will flow off very fast, and when the water flows very fast, it is not allowed any time to ensure that it gets percolated into the ground, and also it carries the soil along with itself. So there are two important points on which we have to work. One, we have to stop the soil erosion. Secondly, we have to ensure that the water is caught and stored, and it is given time to see that it percolates into the ground. So these particular contour trenches ensure that the water that falls on this particular mountain is captured by these subsequent, in series continuous contour trenches. And not only the water, The soil that flows with the water is also captured or collected and stored into these trenches. And these trenches then, because they are moist and they are holding the moisture, then they help in ensuring that we can plant the trees. And if the trees are planted, the entire area gets kind of a green cover, which further reinforces that the trees will ensure and further reinforce this particular activity of catch the rain and store the rain into the groundwater. So this is one part. I also wanted to share something with you, that we say that this particular area is a drought prone area. In Maharashtra, what we have found in this, basically this area of Agrani River Basin also, what we found is the minimum rainfall every year, average minimum rainfall in any year is around 500 mm, maybe 400 to 500 mm. It depends, there is some difference in some years, but the average is 450 mm over 100 period average. If you see that 450 mm of rainfall. So when we started the work in this particular area, what we realized is if this area gets 450 mm of rainfall, so I would just put this in layman's term. What does it mean? So if we take 1 hectare of area, now 1 hectare is actually 10,000 square meters. 1 hectare is 10,000 square meters, and 450 mm rainfall is nearly 0.45 meters. 0.45 meters. Now, if you multiply 0.45 meters into 10,000 square meters, it comes to 450, 4,500 cubic meters. 0.45 into 10,000 is 4,500 cubic meters. That means on 1 hectare of land every year in an area where there is scanty rainfall, in Pune, we get a rainfall of around 700 to 800 mm. But in this area of Sangli district, we get a rainfall of 450 mm. So 450 mm is equal to 0.45 meters into 10,000 square meters, which works out to 4,500 cubic meters. Now 4,500 cubic meters is a lot of water. Lot of water. 4,500 cubic meters means every cubic meter is equivalent to 1,000 liters of water. So 4,500 cubic meter is 45 lakh liters of water. 45 lakh liters of water. 45 lakh liters of water means if a tanker of 10,000 liters is, if we assume that one tanker has 10,000 liters, which normally is the capacity of a tanker, 10,000 liters. So 450 tankers of water falls on 1 hectare of land in Sangli area. And on similar calculations, if we assume 700 mm of rainfall in Pune, that means 700 tankers on 1 acre of 1 hectare area. 700 tankers. Now imagine this is a large amount of water. If you see large societies, they are maybe a society where 250 flats are there, they will be occupying around 1 hectare of land. So 700 tankers of water yearly for 250 families. Now, assuming that out of this 450 tankers, when we are talking about the Sangli area, out of this 450 tankers, we might assume that 200 tankers have created moisture in the soil. 200 tankers, but 250 tankers have have been run off. There's a runoff of 250 tankers. So this 250 tankers worth water, and this quantity of water, when it fell as a rain in my village, then I was not vigilant. I was not alert that this 250 tankers per hectare. A small village is of 1,000 hectares. 1,000 hectares. So 250 into 1,000 is 250,000 tankers. 250,000 tankers means around 300 kilometers. If we take 7 meters as length of a tanker, then it works out to around 210 kilometers. That is, if we on one hectare of land, if we ensure that the tankers are standing in line, then they might reach up to Mumbai. One village has 250,000 tankers. So all these tankers, if they are put in place on a road, then they might extend right up to Ahmedabad, from Sangli to Ahmedabad. So you imagine so much of water falls in one village. Now, if that particular village ensures that whatever is the rain, the surplus rain, which is running away from to the stream, to the river, what happens is this rainwater falls on in my village. Through the small streams, it goes to the river, and then I say the river which is very far off, I will use electricity, I will use energy to see that water is got from there to my village. This is what we are doing. So if we ensure that the rainwater that falls on my village is kind of caught, collected, and stored in my village will never find any shortage of water, and it will ensure that the streams become perennial, and the streams becoming perennial will ensure that my river becomes perennial. This is a small kind of a message, but important work which has to be done on the ground to ensure that the water crisis is averted. Now, I have shown this contour trenches. These contour trenches are, kind of done on the ground, keeping in the amount of rainwater that is going to fall on this area. So normally 150 to 175 cubic meters capacity by the way of these trenches is created to ensure that whatever rain will fall on that particular 1 hectare of land will ensure that we collect this rainwater in these trenches, and these trenches would now percolate the water into the soil, into our ground, and recharge the groundwater. There are many other kind of works that need to be done, on the small streams. If you can see on the small streams, a small check dam is built. you know uh, this is the example of we holding a meeting with the villagers in the dry river bed, where we convinced them that if we follow the procedure and catch the rain and store the rain, then we will be able to ensure that your village, which is currently facing a drought-like situation, will no more face the drought-like situation. This is a Balaudi village in the Khanapur Taluka. When we held the first meeting, they were The villagers were listening to us very intently, and they were really very, very, impressed, because a hope got created into their minds that the principles are very simple, that if we catch the rainwater, then that rainwater will be, help us in living our lives, helping us ensure that we have good agriculture, we helping us solve our drinking water crisis. So that hope got created in their mind, and they collectively decided to build a check dam. A small check dam was built, and they created a history by seeing, by coming together as a villagers. When they come together, uh, the governments of that particular Sangli district were not able to solve their water crisis for last 70 years. But people, when the people of that village came together, understood why they are facing this drought-like situation, and what they can do, to solve this water crisis, and with the help of Jal Biradri, and sharing of our knowledge and their Shram Shakti, their labor, their material, their water, their resources, we were able to make this first check dam. The people were able to construct this first check dam within 3 months. So before the rains, this particular check dam was built, and by by the end of that particular onset of the rainy season there, which is in September, that particular check dam got full of water. So, a village can come together, and if there is a stream, they can construct this kind of a small check dam. There are very low cost technologies available where they can ensure that once we, stop the rainwater that was flowing away from their village, uh, then they will help in recharging the groundwater. And once this kind of a water is stored in this kind of a check dam, this water gets time to stand. This water gets recharged the ground. This recharged water, helps in uh, getting the water into the wells uh, which are far away from this particular stream. So the wells and bore wells which are in the village, far away from the stream, they get water because the water is standing here, and the ground is connected through a large reservoirs of water, and the river and the wells get connected through this kind of a ground aquifers. So it is very important to ensure that the streams that are flowing away, their water is kind of obstructed. A small obstruction is created, and the water is allowed to stand and percolate into the uh, ground. So I would just kind of uh, show you, like, this history was created. This particular dam, you can see the check dam built by the villagers uh, doesn't have any leakage, and there is no dampness. You can see on the lower right hand photograph that it is painted, and on the painted surface it was written Manya Shri Devendra Fadnavis लोक सहभागातून अग्रनदीवर झालेला पहिला बंधारा, सन 2013, when this Devendra Fadnavis got to know that these kind of check dams, by that time more than 20 check dams had been built already on this Agrani river, by the villagers. When Devendra Fadnavis came to know that the villagers are, by their own initiative, on their own resources, are trying to build check dams in series on this river in a drought prone area, and they have ensured that their area will not be under any amount of drought. So he paid a visit there, and that's why the villagers painted this, and they wanted to also showcase that the work done by the villagers through their own supervision, by getting involved, they can ensure the quality which sees that there is no leakage, not even leakage, there is no dampness also found in such a structure. And compare this to any government structures, and you would know, what is the difference when the people, uh, as a owner, take ownership of that particular structure, and they then start behaving as if it is their building, it is their structure, and they don't want any, nobody would like that his house is leaking. So with that passion, when the people come together, they create these kind of structures. This is what I wanted to show. This is also one kind of way of catching the rain in the stream and ensuring that it doesn't flow away from that village. I will come to some other examples. I earlier referred to, the soil that gets eroded because of the rains and because the heavy tree felling. All our, the ground is now exposed, and there are no trees. And because of that, whenever there is a rainfall, the rainfall erodes the soil along with itself, and that soil, when it is flowing with the water, gets deposited in such streams. So what was done by us is widening and deepening of this. The silt was removed, the whole stream was desilted, and this soil is very, very fertile soil. So this fertile soil was taken by the villagers and spread on the barren lands. That there are many barren lands in this kind of a area where there is shortage of water. Because of shortage of water, the land is barren and it is not fertile. So the soil that is excavated, the soil that is taken away from these streams, to see that the water carrying capacity of the stream is increased, this soil is excavated. This excavated soil is spread over the barren land. So there are double benefits. On the one hand, we are trying to create additional capacity, water carrying capacity in the streams by desilting, and the soil recovered from this desilted stream is spread over barren lands. So what we found is, the owner of the barren land was not able to cultivate his land, and so he was a landless farmer in a way. Having a land, he was not he couldn't cultivate his land, so he worked as a landless laborer with other farmers. So when this particular soil was spread on his land, uh, he was able to now kind of cultivate this barren land, and from a labor, he became a proud owner of his own land which he was holding. So these are the transformations that do happen when you get into the kind of catching the rain and ensuring that uh, the water becomes surplus in that particular village, and that surplus water village can ensure that it has good agriculture and can solve its drinking water problems also. So there's another activity to catch the rain. So we have also seen that there are many defunct lakes, or lakes which have not been paid, because they are silted, and due to not proper maintenance, there is leakage. So it is important that we repair those lakes, we do the desilting of those lakes and create additional storage within our villages. As I have showed you earlier through calculations that more than 250 tankers of water per hectare, if the village is having 1,000 hectares, then 250,000 tankers can be stored in such lakes. And 250,000 tankers is a huge quantity of water, which can ensure, in any village, the population is hardly 1,000, 1,200. So 250,000 tankers of water, if it is recharged into the ground or stored on the surface in such kind of a lakes, they can create water security for that particular village. So this is another way of catching the rain and then storing the rain in my water bodies and lakes. And uh, so I will show some more examples to you, uh, and then we would complete. So so we showed you these are the kind of contour trenches which are dug, and the children, you can see that they are planting seeds. They are planting seeds on the excavated soil removed from these trenches. They are standing in the trench, and there is a tamarind seeds that they are planting, and this was done in 2015. Today we can see a lot of trees have grown up to the height of around 3 feet, 5 feet. Tamarind trees grow at a slower pace, but uh, because this area receives rainfall, and that rainfall is caught up and collected, the rainwater is collected in these trenches. So the ground below that is always moist, and these seeds got a lot of kind of a water in a very dry land also. So that helped in growing the trees very nicely. So this is what uh, is done to uh, catch the rain. And these are some of the techniques how the rain is kind of caught. And as I told you, in the urban areas, rooftop rainwater harvesting is one way where we can collectively in all the in all the buildings, maybe they are colleges, they are schools, they are administrative buildings, they are government buildings. If the rooftop rainwater is caught after catching the roof, it is brought through the pipe. That filter, a small filter is available in the market. If we join that filter and discharge that water into the bore well, then we will be able to do a similar work in the uh, urban areas also, and collectively, because this is not any individual's work. If this kind of a rooftop rainwater harvesting is done by every single building, then I can assure you that Pune will never ever face a water crisis. So this is the power of a individual. And if all the individuals in the community start contributing in small measure, uh, they can ensure that the future generations get the water the way we are getting directly from the river. Thank you. I think I have done a lot of talking, and I would end here and would request, if there are question answers, I would be happy to answer them.
Well, thank you very much, sir. I mean, it was really an enthralling session, and you explained so many things in detail. Sir, there are some questions which we have received, and the foremost of them being related to water conservation. So there's one question which says that while check dams do help in water conservation, what are the measures at the micro level through which rural hamlets can contribute towards water conservation?
Yeah. You see, the first and the foremost thought that comes to the mind is the communities coming together. You know, so a community leader is a very important pivot, or you can say a very important link in the whole exercise of water conservation. You know, water conservation is not just a physical structure that gets created. It's the mindset of that particular community who is willing, eager, and ready to see that the water shortage that they are facing can be solved by their small contributions, in terms of labor, in terms of, uh, uh, वो बोलते हैं ना, हमारा अपना तन मन धन से, small contributions of tan man dhan can really change the whole scenario. So these small check dams, one more important point that is to be remembered when we involve the communities and show them that small cement check dams or Vanarai bandaras, what can be done is the empty cement bags that are available at really no cost with any persons, if those are collected, these small these small plastic cement, empty cement bags, if they are filled with soil and properly sealed, and they are kept in series, in line, obstructing the flow of the water, row in 3 or 4 rows for 2 or 3 feet height. Such simple structures can also stop the water in the stream. So it is not only very, very costly structures, in hilly areas where there are trunks of trees which are available. What people have done, these trunks are just put across the streams, and small twigs are put on these streams, twigs on top of these barks of these particular trees, the fallen trees. These become kind of a small dams which obstruct the water. So whatever locally available kind of a material is there, the most important thing is community coming together. When the community coming together comes together, they have all the knowledge and kind of knowledge and know-how of how to obstruct the water in the stream and not allow it to run away from their villages. So the important part of it is this. Second point I wanted to make is that village has always to remember that I am a upstream village and there is a village downstream, and I am a downstream village and there is a upstream village above me. Normally this is the physical situation. So whenever a check dam is made, it should be, it should be in their mind that I am not going to impound all the water of my village. I will impound some water and let the other water go. Because if this is not followed, then what will happen is some part of the streams will be rejuvenated, and the groundwater, that particular part will recharge the ground, and that water will also go away to the ground of the lower stream. So it is very, very prudent and very important. A small quantities of water, not very large check dams should be built. It is one more principle that I will just impound 30% of the water in my check dam, let 70% of the water go away, and that 70% will get 30% in the subsequent area. That becomes 100%. Out of that 100%, I will impound only 30% and let 70% go away. So if this is done in series, then it is very effective way of ensuring that my stream becomes perennial, rejuvenated. So this is what is about check dams.
Right, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Sir, there's one more question which is related to the floods in Uttarakhand. So the recent floods in Uttarakhand have exposed the vulnerability of the major dams in our country. Sir, what are your suggestions to prevent such an incident in future?
What primarily comes to my, I'm not a very big expert, but what I understand of life is one that, we are part of the nature. And unless we accept this reality in very great, with great gravity, we will be intervening in the nature as if to control it, as if to overpower it, as if to dictate it. And now you see Himalayas are the youngest mountains, and all these hydroelectric power stations that are built by creating dams, they have blasted, created tunnels, and these particular blasting has ensured that the topmost rocks, or the topmost portions of the Himalayan mountains is disturbed. And that is a very sure shot recipe, that whenever there is, due to climate change, there are extreme events. This is being acknowledged by the scientists all over the world. So when there are extreme events, there is glacier meltdown, then there is a heavy water that is getting accumulated because of the melting glaciers. And this water, because the trees have been cut in those places. The Chipko movement, which started in 70s, they warned all these that this logging and tree felling shouldn't be done, but it was done, very extensively. So the soil is exposed. The soil has become very loose because of the blasting, and on top of that, when there are huge amount of water coming, they carry all the silt, all the boulders, and they have caused what this current kind of a catastrophe that happened. It washed away a few hydropower projects, and then this is what we are into if we do not play. We don't act as part of the nature and honor the nature, respect the nature, and try to live symbiotically with the nature.
Precisely, sir. Precisely. Very well put, sir. So we are actually flooded with a lot of questions, but I guess we have just space for one. So there's this one last question, sir. Sir, the surface runoff today consists of various impurities ranging from fertilizers to microplastics. Sir, what are your suggestions to actually purify the sanctity of such runoffs to their pristine state?
You see, if somebody asks, now I have added poison, what do I do? So the prevention is the best cure. Organic farming is the answer. you know Going back to, because with the fertilizers and the microplastics are used for cosmetics, mostly for not very important products. They are not part of the important products. They are the products which a person can do away with. It is, I mean, the life doesn't depend on those microplastics. Actually, they are the impurities. So a lifestyle which ensures the continuous use of fertilizers and particular microplastics has to be questioned. Because on the one hand, if we say that I will be using the fertilizers, I will be putting the poison, I will be ensuring that there is toxicity in my soil, and but my water should be pure. Okay. Now, if the people look only for the infrastructure solutions, then there are people who will keep promising that, yes, by neutralizing this particular chemical, you use this chemical. Okay. To reduce the poison, you use this chemical. So you are trying to use chemicals and chemicals and chemicals, and that's not the natural way. That's not the natural farming. That's not the our human bodies made to accept and digest these particular things. So the most important kind of cry in today's world is that unless we look at the lifestyle that we are living, which is causing these kind of catastrophes of poisoned water, poisoned air, and leading to climate change, I don't think there are very easy solutions.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for the enlightening session, sir. I must confess, every word in this webinar has been an eye opener, and it has really sensitized us about the need for water conservation. So, with this, we come to the end of our webinar. We shall now proceed to the vote of thanks. At the outset, we would like to fondly remember our founder chancellor, Dr. Patangrao Kadam sir, because of whose blessings this event has been a great success. On behalf of Bharati Vidyapeeth, deemed to be University New Law College Environment Cell, we express our sincere gratitude to our guest, Dr. Narendra Sunderlal Chook, for taking out time from his busy schedule for this webinar. We are thankful to our principal, Dr. Bhagyashree Deshpande madam, who conceptualized the idea of having a dedicated environment cell in our college. We specially acknowledge the contributions made by our environment cell head, Dr. Jyoti Dharma madam, and coordinator, Dr. Jayashree Khandare madam, who have been the guiding light and the pillars of strength for this environment cell. Finally, we are thankful to our technical team, our volunteers, and all the teaching and non-teaching staff of our college who have helped us in successfully organizing this webinar. Once again, from the bottom of our heart, we say thank you. Sir, I would request everyone to switch on their cameras for a group photo, please. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, sir.